Welcome to Travel Stories Unpacked, the travel podcast where we talk about all things from the silly to the serious and everywhere in between. I am your host, Ashley Newton, and thanks so much for spending some of your time with us. We really appreciate it. And this week, we are unpacking couples trips. We've talked about solo travel, we've talked about girls trips, so now it's time to talk about couples trips. And our guest for this episode is Nate Bricker, who is my boyfriend. And you've probably heard me talk about him a lot in past episodes, which is a little embarrassing, but he is my favorite person to travel with. So Nate, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we have never actually traveled together alone until this year.
No, crazy enough, we have not.
Been together for over a decade.
Yeah.
I feel like that needs to be said because otherwise you're like, that's not that crazy.
A long time coming.
Yeah. And we've done a lot of travel with family and friends and stuff, but this was the first time that we ever did it just ourselves, like from beginning to end. And I remember, I'm curious if this is how you remember it, but I remember it coming about sort of around like our anniversary time, wanting to like do something instead of just like the usual go out to eat or whatever.
Yeah, and I think we decided around Christmas time that we'd spend a little less on Christmas and take a little trip in 24.
Yeah, so and our anniversaries around that time of year as well. So we just sort of like scaled back on those things to help budget for a trip. And with that in mind, we were talking about where we wanted to go, and we had thrown out a couple of ideas. And the reason that we went where we did, which was Traverse City, Michigan, is because we thought it would be the most affordable.
Right.
And I'm laughing because I don't know. Do you feel like we spent a decent amount, or like how do you feel like we did budget wise with what we set out to do?
It was definitely more than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Because like I had never heard of Traverse City to begin with, so I was like, like Michigan would be cool. Michigan doesn't seem very expensive. And like, I guess a lot of Michigan isn't, but like Traverse City in August kind of is.
If you're not familiar with Traverse City, it is like very north. So it's like just on the other side. It's like right across the bay is the Upper Peninsula. Right. So I think in general, the more north you get, maybe the more expensive. I don't know. Like I kind of feel like that's true.
I feel like it's because it's a seasonal town. Like between late June until the end of August, like people go there to travel. And because it's, I don't know, to me it's a fun place.
Well, so and you didn't know that before we got there. I feel like you learned that because you were chatting up like all the locals.
100%. Yeah. Well, then as soon as you're entering Traverse City, you're like, oh, like it kind of seems like a smaller Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, well, and we were comparing it to a lot of other like coastal towns, like when we were down there, like Southport in North Carolina.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I guess first let's start with the drive, because we did decide to drive, and we even looked into it and thought, oh, if we were to come back, would we fly? Because it was like 6 hours about to get there?
The GPS said 6 hours. It was 8 hours to get there and 7 to get back. But like with GPSs, you add an hour onto the time it tells you when you're traveling for stops, At least I feel like for every like 6 hours, you add an hour on for stops.
Yeah. And something that I was really proud of myself is that I did my half of the driving.
I was very proud of you too.
I have been very vocal about the fact that I hate driving. It's like my least favorite thing. But I do think that that's only fair. Like when it's just the two of us, like I can't expect you to do the whole. I mean, I would love it. Like, don't get me wrong.
And if I had to, I would. But I'm glad I didn't have to.
Yeah. And like I like to travel like comfortably. So I even brought like a little blanket for the car, a little neck pillow for the car, so that whoever wasn't driving could like full-blown sleep. Right. I brought a sleep mask.
Right. Which you did on the ride back.
I did, yeah. So I would say that I'm proud of myself for that, but the drive wasn't all smooth.
It was not. It was not at all. Like up until like 3 hours in, it was pretty good.
Yeah. So do you want to tell them about the dreaded exit experience that we had?
Yeah. So in Michigan on Route 23, it's exit 58. I forget the town.
I put down exit 55.
Yeah, it's 58.
Okay.
Sure.
It's either 58 or 55.
And we got off to go to Culver's because we were going to pick a place we had never been. And of course, we picked a place we had never been that was like 7 minutes up the road from us in Ohio.
Yeah.
So
we didn't always have a Culver's, but we just started getting them
Yeah.
sort of around where we live, but we still hadn't been to one. And I just didn't want to stop at like another McDonald's or something. Like I wanted to go
Same.
somewhere.
You know, like it's a little trip. So I was
Yeah.
like, let's get crazy and like,
Yeah.
go to Culver's.
So we just pulled off, and I was still driving at this time. So then I pulled off randomly when we saw the sign.
Yeah. And that's where we hit the first roundabout, which took us in the opposite direction of where we needed to be for Culver's.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up having to go back down the highway and get off at this exit. Luckily, since that exit like went onto this like road that Culver's was on, it was good. Like we were good to go, right?
Well, and at this point, I had made Nate take over because I
Oh,
was
yes, I
watching the
forgot about
clock like nobody's business for when it was like my half is over. So my half was over. We got off the exit. I go through the roundabout, survive somehow, go the wrong way, but I'm like, whatever, like we'll figure it out. But I'm like, do you want to take over? Like if you're comfortable, it is your turn.
And
yeah, so then you drive, we get back through the roundabout, do the wrong thing.
yes.
So then, and this like roundabout was so weird. And granted, I don't like them ever, but like I've never been, oh, there's one like 10 minutes from our house, I forgot. But generally roundabouts don't like, one of them isn't just the highway. You know what I mean?
Well, and like if there's a roundabout close to your house, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But like I also think we're trying to follow the GPS on a roundabout, and like at least Google Maps is not very good about that.
No, it was disastrous. But then we are trying to go through, we go down the highway too far, get off the highway, and then come back, finally find the Culver's, or
Yeah.
do we miss it again?
No. So we found the Culver's. We got there a little early, so we were the first people in line at the door. That was kind of embarrassing.
But more people joined us, like right away.
Yeah, which
like
made,
we weren't even
ma-
actually.
It made me feel better.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, so I'm not the only one that wants a burger at like 9:58 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know. So we order the Culver's, we leave, obviously put the GPS back on, and then we hit another roundabout. But this roundabout goes into another roundabout that goes into another roundabout. And long story short,
So that's 3 roundabouts,
It
all
is.
connected. So it's like a figure 8 plus 1.
yes, and we're supposed to get on 23 North, and so we hit the third roundabout and we get on 23 South. And I'm like, shoot. So we go 2.5 miles down the road, 2.5 miles back up the road to hit these roundabouts again. And then we do the same exact thing. We go south again. And I was like, I mean, maybe we should just go home. It might be a sign. And so then we go back, and this time we get to the third roundabout, and I almost got back on 23 South, but Ashley's like, no, don't do that. So then I just proceeded to circle the roundabout until I found the right exit, because I wasn't going to let that happen again. And we got on 23 North, and
Yeah, we like timed
we added like an extra hour to our trip.
Exactly. Like we timed it all out, and it was an hour worth of just like going around literally in circles and down this same stretch of highway. And I remember now too, part of the reason we waited is because we wanted to get out of the like dead construction, like it was a dead stop. So we were like, oh, like we had been waiting and waiting, and then we were finally on the road, and then we just drove in circles for like 40 minutes. But I will say, I think we handled it really well.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like we got upset with each other. I feel like we kept our cool. Like we were kind of laughing about it like 10 minutes later. So.
I mean, it was obviously a little like nerve-wracking, but like nobody got mad or anything like that.
Yeah, but I think like it's so easy to get really stressed out in moments like that, and then you do just sort of like ruin the whole mood.
Right,
so like we powered through, we like made
did.
a joke out of it, and then we were back on the road. And then driving into Traverse City, I think was really exciting for both of us because we had never seen Lake Michigan before.
Right.
And we were sort of comparing it to Lake Erie and like what we know.
Comparison.
Yeah, absolutely not. So I remember we like sort of rounded the bend, and it was just this gorgeous blue. And I mean, the most beautiful sunny day. Like I was instantly happy to be there.
Yeah, same. I was too. It was crazy to see how blue the water was. That's the biggest difference between like Lake Erie and Lake Michigan is how blue the water is compared to like Lake Erie. Lake Erie's kind of brown, and like Lake Michigan's clear and blue. Like some oceans aren't even like that. It was really neat to see.
Yeah, Nate kept saying like Lake Erie's dead to me. I'm never going back in Lake Erie. And then
That's not true.
No, we were home like 3 days, and you were like, you want to go to the lake?
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
So like I did say it, but like obviously like I can't help myself.
Yeah, like I didn't mean it though. But we did end up staying at the most expensive hotel that we found.
Yeah.
But we both absolutely loved it.
Yeah, well, it was cheaper. It wasn't cheaper than the Airbnbs, but for a couple $100 more, it was way nicer.
Yeah, and it's called the Delamar, and it was really the only hotel that seemed to be like right in the middle of their downtown. And I say downtown with like big quotation marks because like
it's a small downtown.
yeah, it's more of just like the area,
right,
you know. But we loved it there. It was really walkable, which was really nice. We didn't actually take the car out again, which again I think was really nice for us. It didn't lead to discussions of, well, I want to drive, I don't want to drive, I'll pay for the Uber.
Right.
You know, it just like took
I
all
forgot
of that out.
we had the car there for those 3 days.
Yeah, which is like my dream.
Yeah.
Like, that is like so like perfect for me. But and again, absolutely no complaints about the hotel. But there was one thing that happened there that I think we have to talk about.
What's that?
The wedding.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we were at our hotel because like the hotel had its own little beach area. It had 2 pools. Like it was a nice place to just hang out.
100%.
So we had got back from a long day and we were swimming and we were having a good time. And then we noticed like people are like setting up for an event. Like there's all these people dressed up really nice.
It's definitely a wedding because like the chairs were nice and they were in like the wedding stance, which is like rows and rows and rows.
I forgot watching the guy set that up.
What do you call the little thing that people get married under?
Like the arch or like yeah, I don't know what they actually call it.
But they had that, so.
And yeah, they had like the sign like even in the building, like by the elevators, like for the couple. So we asked the staff there, like, what's going on? Like, where's this going to be? Because we didn't want to be in the way of the wedding. And they were really sort of like, don't worry about that. Like,
yeah, they're like, you know, like you paid to stay here. So like, just do your own thing. But like, we're not going to like get in the way of somebody's wedding. Right.
Yeah. But they also like had no information.
Exactly.
They were just really kind about it. And like, you know, you don't need to worry about like altering your stay here because of this event. Like they don't buy out the whole hotel. Like don't worry about it. So we're like, oh, okay. Like I kind of like based on the time in the afternoon, like figure it'll start around 4. Let's like get some lunch and like hang out in the pool before going to the beach. Cause what we really wanted to do was get in the like the lake.
Yeah, just
but
hang out for
obviously if you're getting married there, that's the backdrop they want too. So they're all set up on the green space with the like beach behind them.
Right.
So we're like killing as much time as we can. And then finally I'm like, I just like really want to go down to the water. So then we get out of the pool and we're looking down and we see them all lining up like inside right where we would exit to go to the beach. So we're like, okay, clearly like we can't do that. So then we like kill more time. And then at some point, I'm telling you it's not going to be like enough time hasn't passed, but you're like, I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah. And so I'm in like my swimsuit. I might not even have a shirt on. I'm not sure.
I think you had like a towel around like your shoulders.
Yeah. And like everybody, like the wedding party outside wasn't like lined up or anything anymore. So I was like, okay, I'll go down this little like hallway and through these 2 doors and it takes you out to the beach. Well, I went to go through the 2 doors and I'm guessing like the mom of the bride or something was like, hold on. But then she was like, no. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, you got shushed away.
Yeah,
you got
like okay.
pushed away. So then we wait even more. I don't even remember, like probably just swimming at the pool, like getting a beer or whatever. Yeah. But then finally we look out and the chairs are gone or everybody's gone. Like nobody's in the ceremony space. So we're like, heck yeah. And they were all like inside. So to avoid even like passing them in our dripping wet swimsuits, we walk all the way around the building.
Yep.
Like we go out the front, walk all the way around the building.
Like in the parking lot.
Yeah, just to avoid like the area where their event is. You know, we think we're being so considerate, right? So then we get to the beach, lay out, like we're in the water, I think maybe 5 minutes before everybody comes back.
And doing like pictures like by the water, so I might be in a wedding photo or 2.
It was so like awkward because at this point now we're on the beach. We can't leave the beach without also walking by them.
Right.
So we were just trapped. And luckily there was another guy there who came up to us and he was like, are you like, we weren't the only ones on the beach. There were like a couple other people there. But like then he was saying he had like the same concerns. Like all of a sudden there was just like a wedding around him and you don't really know like what to do when you're just a regular guest.
I personally just kind of like hung out in the water and talked to this guy who was also kind of nervous about being in these pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to save this for later, but since you brought it up, you are a vacation friend person. Like, you're talking to everybody.
I mean, I don't know if I see myself that way, but like wouldn't be the first time I've heard something like that.
No, like, this is a fact. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, but like, I remember at one point I was literally like, please stop, because I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, I want to talk to you. And like, sometimes I am totally in the mood. Like, when we were on the boat, there was an older couple that we met and we were talking to them all. Like, it was just very natural. And like, I don't know, I guess I just get in my head sometimes and I'm like, I don't want to bother people. So it's like, when you're striking up these conversations with people, I am always just like more anxious than anything.
It's funny because I don't want to be rude and not talk to them if they're right next to me. I don't want to act
I
like
never
they don't
thought
exist,
about it like that, but that makes total sense. So
plus he had a really cool job. He like flew planes on the weekend and then flew Blackhawks during the week. So like he had a lot to talk about.
And he seemed really into that conversation.
Yes.
So like, I just left. Cool. I was like, have a good time. I just went over to the beach because like, that's fine too. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to spend every single second together. But I struggle with vacation friends. And I feel like that's something we're going to like find our footing with the more that we travel.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the wedding, which is definitely seems to be a thing in Traverse City, but also bachelorette parties are a total thing there.
Yes.
And we learned this from our bus driver, which was such a fun experience. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so Ashley booked this like brew bus tour, and
we waited till the last minute to do that as well.
Yeah, like we were kind of afraid like maybe there wouldn't be a spot, but we waited the last minute either way. And then we're sitting at lunch the day we're supposed to go on this brew bus tour, which takes you to I think like 2 wineries and a distillery, sometimes a brewery. It's kind of like the driver's choice at that point. And Ashley gets a call and you have to take it and you walk away and you come back and you're like, yeah, so that was the brew bus driver. And he says, we're the only ones for reservations tonight. So it's just going to be you and me on this big bus with the bus driver. And I was like, well, that sounds awkward, but let's do it.
See, I right away was so excited. I was like, VIP treatment, just us. But I think it also speaks to what I was just saying. Like, I'm not necessarily trying to make vacation friends. So the fact that there was going to not be people trapped on the bus that we like would maybe get along with, maybe not.
Right.
Like just taking that element out of it. I was so excited. So excited they didn't cancel on us for being only 2 people in the whole bus.
And it turns out that they usually do. Like, not this company, but other companies that do these brew buses in Traverse City. Like, if it's just like 1 or 2 people, they'll just like cancel on you and be like, not enough people.
But I loved it.
It did turn out to be a really awesome time. It was like our own private Uber, but on a really nice bus with a very nice bus driver. And
shout out to Mark.
we got to pick which wineries we got to go to. You know, he like gave us options and he's like, if you want to spend this much time at like the first winery, you can. If you want to spend all the time at the first winery, you can. Obviously we didn't want to do that though. Yeah
But it was really cool, and it took us a little bit farther like out of the city without having to actually like drive ourselves there. So obviously that's going to be like right up my alley, and you're taking me to wineries and I can drink beer in the way. Like, it was a ton of fun. It might be my favorite thing that we did the whole time we were there.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's really hard to narrow down like a favorite thing. The Naughty Cat, which is a catamaran, was really fun because I like water and I like the boats. Not just one boat, all the boats.
Yes. But while we were doing that, and that's like very much just like a booze cruise, right? Like they just drive you around and they have a little bar on there and you're drinking and whatever, if that's your vibe. But they drove us over. Do you remember like the sailboat race?
Yes.
So that was so much fun.
It was. It was a little like nerve wracking at first because I wasn't too sure what these like they were obviously sailboats. But at one point we had looked over and like, you know, you got like the bottom of a boat and then the sail, but it was like this, you know, and like almost like tilted sideways and some dude's leisurely walking over to the other side to like get it upright. And I was like, huh, that's very interesting. And he's like very good at that. And it turns out that like it was a very serious sailboat race that I'm not sure how often they do it, but
Yeah, and it's probably not like called that at all. I actually tried to look it up before this so I could call it what it like was,
yeah.
and I couldn't figure it out. But like, it's not just a race from like, oh, how fast can you get here or there? They're like going around these buoys and like trying. So it's more about like the maneuvering, which is why they get so like fast with their turn. So like you do look over and all of a sudden it looks like this boat, like the sail's about to touch the water because it's turning so much.
I think it's like built like that for the most part.
Yeah,
though.
But it was like exhilarating. Like I'm just watching it and I'm like, let's go! Like big fan of the boats. And again, that's something we did right from our hotel.
Yes.
You didn't have to stay at our hotel to do that, but we just like woke up and like walked right outside and it was there. And I know you loved the kayaking.
I did. I really liked the kayaking because it was just like really peaceful. It was my first time kayaking on like a lake and not like a river.
Yeah.
So that was fun because it's different because like you do have to put some like work into it because if you don't, you're just gonna like drift back to shore eventually, you know?
Yeah. And like usually the sort of kayaking we do is like they drop you off. You can kayak, but you could also literally
Just
float
yeah.
to your next location. And this was my first time, I think, doing it on a lake too. I've done it in oceans and I've done it in situations like that. But it was fun that like we got to have a first together.
Yes.
But we sort of we joke all the time that like that's our dynamic because like there's just certain things that like I do and certain things that you do. And I get kind of annoyed because I'm like, oh, I always have to like be the one to think about everything. You know what I mean? Like I'm always the one that grabs the towels and the sunscreen and blah, blah, blah. So we are out on the kayak and Nate's like, oh, it'd be really cool if we had music right now. And I'm just like, I brought the speaker.
It was perfect.
And that's when I realized that's why it's our dynamic because I get such joy out of like preparing for things and then having it work. Like I like that.
Right.
So while I can be all like blah blah about it, like I do it because I enjoy it and I love when it pays off like that. And it was a great time.
Yeah, I agree. I love it when you plan things too. It's not really like my forte. So
well, and I guess for this whole trip, it was really hard for me to try to not plan everything. Like I did want to just keep things spontaneous and just sort of like not Ashlify it too much.
And I feel like you did a good job doing that.
Thank you. And I feel like even like the brew boat, or not the brew boat, the brew bus, like I waited partially to book it so late because I wasn't even sure if we wanted anything scheduled or if we wanted that one thing that was for sure planned. And then I was proud of myself too because I thought that it was the perfect blend of like we know the vibe, and I had a ton of like different ideas of what we could do. Like we got the cherry passports, and
which nobody knew about.
Literally nobody knew about it, and I found it on like Traverse City's like tourist website. And I was talking to the one girl at we were out to lunch, and I was like, "Oh, they recommend this on the cherry passport, so I'll get that to drink." And she's like, "What passport?" So I like show her my phone and everything, and she's like, "Oh, that's really cool," but like nobody knew about it.
No.
But I think it was a learning moment for me and definitely relieved some anxiety going into it with kind of half planning and not having it be a horrible experience. You know, like everything was still great, even though we didn't have everything super researched and super planned.
Well, and like some of it was planned like you like, and some of it wasn't planned like I like. And I think like when you're doing a couples trip like that, you got to have something like that because if it's all just like planned and this other like your partner doesn't really like a time schedule, you know, like it could stress them out and you know,
no,
like,
absolutely
ruin the vibes for a little bit.
Yeah. And I also struggle with like changes in plans, even if they're perceived plans that I don't communicate to other people, because in my mind, the whole time after we were done with the winery tour thing on the brew bus, we were going to go downtown and like continue to like party. And you didn't want to do that at all. You were tired. You wanted to swim.
Yep.
So it took me like a minute, like literally probably 60 seconds. And then I was like, I love to swim. Why are you going to like be upset about this just because you weren't expecting it?
Right. I thought I picked the second best thing.
No, and it was. I had a great time. I'm diving in the pool that later we saw said no diving. But, but it was really good and I think really good for us. So obviously we loved it. But if you had to describe like Traverse City in like 3 words, what would you say?
Small, fun, and like naturey.
Naturey? Okay.
I mean, you do have like the dunes, like not too far away,
Which we didn't even
which we
make
didn't
it to.
do. I do regret this.
Yeah, do
But,
you?
yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, next time.
Yes.
Next time we'll make it up there. For me, pizza.
Oh.
Everywhere.
Can we do 4 words? Because I would do coffee too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, like, every 3 feet, it's pizza or coffee.
Yes.
Pizza or coffee, which is great. You know, like, that's totally fine. Quiet. It's an incredibly quiet
Yes.
place. They even have, like no live music anywhere in the city after 10, which took us, like, a little bit to, like, figure out and, like, talk to people to figure that out. But we also thought, oh, okay, then it'll be, like, an early riser sort of town.
Nobody wakes up till like noon either.
Yeah. So I'm like, where is
It's kind
everybody?
of my town, really.
And then the last one I would probably say is friendly.
Yes.
Like, everyone was so nice. I remember us talking about it and being like, I would almost think it's like fake if it didn't feel so genuine.
Right. Yes. Yeah, definitely. People were very nice, and I guess that is one good thing about Traverse City, at least in our experience, that like people were easy to talk to. Yeah, just overall good people.
Yes, so nice, so laid back, really fun time. Anything else that you learned sort of about us and, you know, traveling as a couple? Don't be afraid to hurt my feelings.
You can do a good amount of driving. So that's cool.
Okay, fair. I would say I was almost, I mean, honestly, no, I wasn't worried about anything going in at all. Like, even though we haven't traveled just us, we have done a good amount of traveling together. So, like,
well, and we're really together all the time, and like everything's always fine. So,
yeah. I got nothing else to add. Like, we had a great time. I guess we've been together so long, it wasn't so much a learning experience, so much as finally, like, yes, we finally like did it.
Yeah, and we got to do it again because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was our first, but it won't be our last.
Yes,
for sure. Well, Nate, how was it talking about this on the podcast?
It was awesome. Not as, like, I was very nervous coming into this. My hands are no longer clammy. So, yeah, it was fun.
Good. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope that you guys, now when I talk about Nate and, like, bring him up, like, this is him. You can, like, put it all together, right? And I also want to thank everybody in Traverse City that we met because we had a fantastic time. But also, shout out to the girl who said she liked my outfit when Nate was like, is that what you're wearing to the wineries?
It's not even how it was supposed to come off.
But, okay, so we're just walking down the street, and Nate's like, what are you going to wear tonight to the Brew Bus thing? And I'm like, this. I'm just going to, like, do my makeup and stuff before we go.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Like, you know, like, I don't know. And I don't know if it was just circumstance or if she overheard and saw me being like, God, like, do I have to change? Like, what is this? Because out of nowhere, she just goes, I really like your outfit.
Like, seconds later, like, you can't even make it up.
Yeah, so if you're that girl, thank you very much. And I hope that you just have the best day ever. All right, well, I feel like that's all we have for you. But if you have any questions about Traverse City, we really did have a great time, even though we weren't there for a very long time. So we'd love to talk about it with you. So feel free to drop any questions in the comments anywhere on social media using our hashtag #TravelStoriesUnpacked. Or you can find us on Reddit. We started a community there. So just search for Travel Stories Unpacked, and we'd love to interact with you there, where it's a little bit more anonymous if you like to have that freedom. All right, keep coming back on Fridays where we're going to keep unpacking all things about travel. This podcast is brought to you by KHM Travel Group, a leading host agency for independent travel agents. Go to khmtravel.com to learn more.